Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel where today I am going to provide you with the feedback that I provided with Wargaming 2 days ago. As of this recording, I sent this to them 2 days ago. And I figured I would do this because I've been told that not only is feedback vital for them, but I think feedback is also vital for you guys so that you guys can comment on what I've told them. You might have different opinions on it, you might have a different take on it, and you can let me know in the comments below. But as of this recording, we're about 3 weeks into the minimum arm distance changes. 3 weeks isn't a day, it's not even a week, it's a lot longer. We've had more time, I've done several streams, I've had some pretty long gaming stints playing all eras, obviously not Era 1 didn't change at all really. I've been playing Era 2 and I've been playing Era 3 especially a lot more in a whole variety of tanks. So I feel like I've given it enough time to provide well-rounded feedback. Now typically, you know, in the first week, like I mentioned in my first feedback video, or my first sort of opinion on it, I thought, yeah, this is good, but we need more time. We need more time for the game to settle a little bit, find its pace, the new pace of the new game. I want to say new game. It feels like a new game. But, you know, 3 weeks I think is enough time. So I gave my feedback to Wargaming 2 days ago. And here I am giving you my feedback, the same feedback that I gave them. So we'll start with Era 2, then we'll jump into Era 3. And if I miss out any tanks, it's likely because I don't own them. And I can't provide feedback on tanks I don't own. Or I forgot about them. So, Era 2, Begleitpanzer and Ignis autocannons are now more dominant than they were before, and they were already very good. Both could use either a rate of fire nerf or a penetration nerf. Doing an armadillo nerf to them would be taking it too far. So, I identify that both of these tanks, their autocannons, are a little too strong. But at the same time, I want to put a ceiling on how far a nerf should go, because Wargaming hit the armadillo with the nerf hammer way too hard, in my opinion. That thing has been nerfed into oblivion, which is a shame because it was a very unique vehicle. I don't want them to do the same thing with the Ignis and the Begleitpanzer. That would be taking it too far. So there you go, Wargaming. Please take that on board. AMX-13 could use a gun accuracy buff because its gun is now its close range armament and the accuracy isn't very good. I think the penetration could possibly use a slight buff because all I do is fire gold out of it and I still bounce shots here and there. I think the interclip reload is fine, the clip reload is fine at 8 seconds. But yeah, the accuracy of that gun, I really think that could use some love because it is not very good. It is not a very good gun. You know, that needs some love. Alright, the WZ-122. I think that could use a slight buff to its standard pen because the gun is now the primary weapon system. The gun, the penetration on the gun has always been a bit low, but that was never really a problem because you could just put an ATGM out, do 900 damage, do 1000 damage, put a shot out, do 400 damage, and you can walk away from an engagement with 1400 to 1300 damage. You can't really do that anymore. You've got to rely on the gun, and that tank is famous for being a crew trainer. So it's a very popular tank, but it's now quite difficult to play, and I do think that the standard penetration on the rounds, that does need to be buffed a little bit just so that it can become competitive now that the ATGM weapon system has been nerfed. I do think the gun needs a little bit of love there. The BMP-1 minimum arm distance on that one needs to be 65 meters. I think I'll get into this a little bit more later, but the BMP-2 is 65 meters, but the BMP-1 is 100 meters. And I don't understand why. The BMP-2 is a stronger tank and it gets the better arm range. So I think the BMP-1 needs to be 65 meters as well. With the limited gun depression, or the limited ATGM depression on the Marder 1A1, that could really use with being 65 meters as well. And I think there's a bit. I'll get it again. Like I'll get into this more later. But I think many of the light tanks need to be 65 meters. Or if not 65 meters, there needs to be some variety, not just sticking to 100 or 65 meters. Let's have something in between. Let's have 75, 80. Pick a number. It could be anything. Put 77 in there. I don't mind because I like the variation. But I'll get onto that more later. Sheridan, M3A1 and the BMP2 are fine in my opinion. Those tanks are fine. And it's great to see a tank like the Scorpion 90 being competitive again. The Scorpion 90 was a tank that suffered a little bit because, well, it was no match for things like the BMP2. It was no match for things like the Begleitpanzer. It was just outmatched, and now it's kind of finding its place, because if you can get close enough, if you can get close enough to the enemy light tank, you can take away their ATGM weapon from them. So then it becomes gun on gun, which I quite like that. Right, Era 3, here we go. M3, I made a video on this already. M3A2 Bradley autocannon needs a major accuracy buff because it is a Bushmaster. And we now have the Desert Warrior in the game, which Desert Warrior is absolutely fantastic with its Bushmaster. The Bradley is absolutely terrible. You've got both weapon systems. Well, not both. It's the same weapon system on two tanks. And it doesn't make sense for one to be absolutely amazing and the other one to be absolutely trash. So bring the Bradley, the Tech Tree Bradley, in line with the Desert Warrior, please. Wiesel. I think the Wiesel's minimum arm distance shouldn't be 65 meters, but I don't think it should be 100 meters either. And I think this is where the variation in arm distances comes in. I want to see something like, I think the Wiesel should be more like 75, 80 meters. 100 meters is way too far. 65 meters feels like it's a bit too close in my opinion. I think there needs to be something in the middle. So that for me is the main tank that really is the main cause for the need for variation. We need something to mix it up a little bit. The Marder 1A3 suffers from the same problem that the 1A1 does. It doesn't really have the depression on the ATGM, so it needs 65 meters because it can be very difficult to play these tanks when the autocannon, the autocannon isn't quite good enough. You need the ATGM to be there, but not like it used to be, obviously. We need to have... It needs to be more functional than it is. That's my sense with the Marders. The Desert Warrior and the Stormer are fine. And it's great, in my opinion, it's great to see the VFM, the M8 AGS, and the TCM AGS finding their place, because before the minimum arm distance change, these tanks were essentially just dead. You never saw the TCM AGS playing, and if you did, it was kind of like a non-player on your team. Same for the VFM and the M8. The VFM is more of a light medium, and the M8 is a solid light tank. Both of them were a little obsolete because they didn't have ATGMs, and they could just be outplayed by BMP2s, they could be outplayed by Stormers, Stridsfordons, you name it. Any other tank could outplay these things, but now they've got their place, and like you just saw in the game, the previous game I showed you, it's nice to have these tanks back in the game. It's nice to know that these tanks have their place and I can play them and I can be competitive in them. That's really very nice. I would like an explanation as to why the minimum arm distances are different on different tanks, because right now, as an example, and I mentioned this earlier, I don't understand why the BMP1 is 100 meters and the BMP2 is 65 meters. The only thing I can think of is this a penalty for being lower tier and a reward for being higher tier? Is that the approach? I don't know. I have no idea. It doesn't make sense to me right now. The Raketen has a minimum arm distance of 100 meters, which makes it unplayable in certain circumstances. like I'm showing you here, you just can't do anything. And this tank especially, I think this needs to be addressed more than any other tank in the game, because all it's got is ATGMs, and if you're within the minimum arm distance, if the target's within that arm distance, you can't do anything. You just can't. I mean, yeah, you could argue, you could still put an ATGM out and do 300 or bounce, but you know, that's not good enough when both ATGMs take 20 plus seconds to reload. I really think the Raketen needs to be looked at again. It needs to be looked at soon, because it is a very difficult tank to play at the moment as it is right now. Another option for a tank like the Raketen is allow us to use the roof-mounted machine gun to at least shoot out tracks or something, so that at least we can stop the enemy advancing on us. We need something that is a close range defense. The Raketen's desperate for that. Maybe the Wiesel could employ a similar solution. I don't know. It would be interesting. I'd like to see something. I'd like to see something developed in that direction. All of the Merkavas in Era 3 are at 65 meters, but the Russian tanks in the same era are 100 meters. I don't know why. Why is the BU 100 meters and the Merc 3 65? They're both heavy tanks. They're both tech tree tanks. They're both at the same tier. They're both at the same era. I don't know. I really don't know. I've mentioned this a couple of times already, but I would really like to see variation in the arm distance values, because it means that I have to learn each tank. I have to go into the stats and I have to realize, okay, this tank is 65 meters. This tank is 100 meters. This tank is 70 meters. That tank is 82 meters. I have to understand each vehicle, and that's what I want from the game. I want each tank to have a niche to it, a uniqueness, because if everything is 65 meters, then everything plays the same way with ATGMs. And if everything's 100 meters, everything plays the same 100 meters. I want some variation in the game, and I want something to keep it interesting, because I think that variation would keep it interesting. And what I would like it to be based on is, for example, I would like the variation in the arming distance to be based on the effectiveness of the primary weapon system. So, for example, the Begleitpanzer, that should be 100 meters, because the autocannon, as it is now, is an absolute beast. That thing doesn't need ATGMs within 100 meters. It just doesn't. The AMX-13, that can be 75 meters, because it's got a primary weapon system, its gun, but it's not that great. So don't make the ATGM 65, don't make them 100. Give it somewhere in the middle that matches the balance of the weapon system. And then obviously the Raketen that has nothing but ATGMs, that needs to be 65 meters, because it has no other weapon system to fall back on. And that right there is how I would like this to be framed, and how I'd like this to be shaped. I'd like there to be I'd like the community to understand how the balancing works, because right now it seems like, I don't know, names of tanks were just tossed in the air, and whatever side of a line on the ground they fell on, oh, we'll make that one 65, oh, we'll make that one 100. It's like, okay, why? We don't know. We don't understand that, and we would very much like an explanation. More variation, in my mind, is good, but please explain the reasoning behind each arming distance and the methods used to determine such values. So that's my kind of summary line for all my feedback here. I like the changes overall. I've tried to provide some constructive criticism. I've tried to provide some areas that I think need improving, and I've also tried to provide some areas where I don't think things need to change at all. There are some tanks in the game that I think are quite good. I think one I've missed off the list here is the Stridsfordon of Era 3. I think that thing needs to be 65 meters, because the pen on the autocannon, it's rapid rate of fire, but the penetration is quite low. So yeah, there you go. Alright guys, that is all of my feedback as of now on the minimum arm distance changes 3 weeks in. If you want to add to it or you want to comment on it, then please do so in the comments below. Like this video if you've enjoyed it, dislike it if you haven't, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye bye.